All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this April 28th regular meeting of the Somerville School Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the school committee will be conducted via hybrid participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. With that, Dr. Carmona, will you please call the roll?
Through the chair, Ms. Piton,
Here.
Dr. Ackman,
Here.
Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. Piton, President Pineda Neufeld, Mayor Ballantyne, Ms. Barish,
Here.
Dr. Phillips,
Here.
Chair Krepchen.
Here.
We have quorum.
All right, we will start with a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will now introduce our interpreters. Spanish, if you would unmute yourself.
Hello, I'm Daniela Carray, the Spanish interpreter for today. Hola, soy Daniela Caride, la intérprete de español de hoy. Tenemos interpretación en el canal abajo en el menú de Zoom. Apriete y escoja español, por favor. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. And Portuguese?
Good evening. My name is Vanusa Teixeira. I'll be your Portuguese interpreter for tonight. Boa noite, meu nome é Vanusa Teixeira, serei sua intérprete de português esta noite. Para ouvir essa reunião, clique no globo na parte inferior da sua tela e selecione português.
Great. And Haitian Creole?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angie Supri. I'll be your Haitian Creole interpreter for tonight. Bonsoir tout le monde. Nom c'est Angie Supri. Moi, c'est interprète créole haïtien pour nous ACA. Si vous avez besoin de créole haïtien, gardez en bas la page là, appliquez le globe là, choisissez français pour créole haïtien. Merci.
Great, thank you so much. We will start with a report of our student advisory rep, who I believe is joining us on Zoom.
Yeah, so on Friday before break, we had our multicultural fair, and it was a very big success. We had some performances and stands, a lot of food. And in general, seniors have just been getting ready to wrap up. We have class day on May 30th, prom on the 22nd, which is also our last day of school, and graduation, which will be on June 2nd, and that's at Tufts this year. And then spring sports are just midway. Yeah, that's all.
Great, thank you so much. Exciting things happening for our seniors. Are there any questions from my colleagues? All right, seeing none, that brings us to some approval of minutes. So I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the minutes of the April 7th, I'll do it backwards, March 24th and April 7th, 2025 school committee meetings.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Dr. Ackman. If there is no discussion, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. We do not have anyone signed up for public comment, so that brings us to the report of the superintendent. Dr. Carmona.
Great. Through the chair, good evening, everyone. And it was great to hear Ana Sofia a minute ago. The multicultural celebration at the high school was outstanding. I still have some Hannah tattoos that are almost wearing off, but it was amazing. So I recommend everyone to visit the high school during such an amazing day. So I hope you all had a restful April break despite the rain, and hope you were able to recharge with your loved ones. And it is hard to believe that we are now officially in the final stretch of this school year. This week marks the start of the Math MCAS testing across the district, so thank you to our students, our families, our parents, our educators for the preparation as well as support during this important time. We know these assessments are just one measure of the incredible learning that is happening every day in our schools. As we look ahead to the final weeks of the year, please be on the lookout for upcoming concerts, performances, and celebrations of student learning. It is a very exciting time, and we encourage families and community members to attend and support our students. I also want to highlight that our Conditions for Learning survey is now live. This survey gives students, staff, and families a chance to share feedback that directly informs our planning and improvement efforts. We appreciate everyone taking a few moments to complete this information. I also want to give you a brief update on the MSBA process for the Winter Hill School as well as the Brown School Building project. We are on track in the forming the project theme phase, which will continue through July 2025. Right now, the city is in the process of selecting an honors project manager, the OPM, and the feasibility study phase is expected to run from August 2025 to July 2026. The city also continues to hold public meetings with the Construction Advisory Group, which will make recommendations to the mayor about whether to combine schools and where the new schools should be located. Our Chief of Staff, Amara Nosike, and a school committee member, Andrew Green, both serve on this advisory group. Additionally, the city is targeting May or June for the first meeting of the school building committee, which will partner with the OPM on design decisions. And we are grateful for the continued collaboration between the city and the school and the broader community as we move this critical work forward. I also am excited to celebrate some recent student and staff achievements. Congratulations to the 6 Somerville High School students who received 2025 City Music Summer Scholarships from Berklee College of Music. They will, woohoo! They will attend the Berklee Aspire 5-week music performance intensive. That is impressive. And congratulations to Enzo Atunes, Maya Dritten, Renata Gorn, Aiden Su, Milo Kochansky, and Serena Wong. And a big thank you to the music educators, the principals, and all the community who supported them. Congratulations as well to Somerville High School history teacher Ada Santos, who was sworn into the K-12 statewide graduation council. Ms. Santos will help reassess graduation requirements across Massachusetts, and we are thrilled to see her leadership recognized at the state level. So congratulations to Ms. Santos. And here to tonight's agenda. So we will begin with a presentation from our amazing Director of Enrollment, Teresa Rodriguez, who will share enrollment trends and updates, and I know you have been waiting for that information. She does an incredible job ensuring Somerville families can access our district and are welcomed by our caring staff in Somerville. After Teresa, we will have a roundout about our school improvement plan presentations. We'll hear from Next Wave and Full Circle Principal Margaret Green de Pasquale, followed by Somerville High School Principal Alicia Kirsten. So thank you to our principals and our Director of Data and Accountability, Samuel Jean, and of course, to Dr. Jessica Boston Davis for your hard work on these plans. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa for her enrollment data presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I wanted to share just basic information about this enrollment period. We were able to support many families joining us in the pre-K and kindergarten space, so we'll start there. In general, our enrollment is stable. If you look at slide number 1, we have had the dip that everybody's very familiar with during the pandemic. Currently, we're back approximately at where we were before, so I don't think generally there's large changes in district enrollment. I'll wait to see if there's any questions or just keep moving on. That's okay. Okay, perfect. Next, pre-K and K registration, just to see where the trends are and what the patterns are. You'll see their perspective overall that we're similar, again, as we've been, and if you're looking for the exact numbers, we've gone up a little bit in our pre-K numbers. We're at 212 for this past cycle. And this is, again, just the first priority period, just so we're kind of comparing apples to apples. People are still enrolling now. And we went down a small bit in K, so up from 204 to 212 on the next slide, and down from 353 to 343. But as I said, people continue to enroll. I had a family call today and just say, oh, we weren't sure if we were going to move. We're just enrolling now for kindergarten. So that's an ongoing process for us. On the next slide, people sometimes are just interested in where people want their children to go to school based on where they're living. So this is a lot of columns, but essentially the middle columns that have the yellow just talks about the change in demand. So you'll see there's more families this year that were looking for a spot at the Kennedy School. That pre-K only has 18 seats, as do all the other pre-Ks in the district. We remind families that half of our pre-K seats are located for general education students at the Capuano School, so that's the largest school. And you'll see there was a large demand in Unidos for kindergarten. So the left portion of that, the lighter blue, is the pre-K demand, and on the right side is the kindergarten demand. So Unidos, we hadn't really had to have a lottery in the past couple of years. Most people who applied got in. This year, there's about 10 people on the wait list for Unidos in kindergarten. On the next slide, it just shares if you're interested in the people who live in a certain proximity zone. If I live near the Argenziano, am I choosing the Argenziano as my first choice school? So just giving you a comparison from last year to this year about people that live in a general area. We know again that Winter Hill has a little bit more flexibility because of the change in location. We offered that to folks that lived west of Sycamore Street, so that is a smaller percentage, but that's the one that I would call attention to that's different than the others. Next, or I don't know if I should stop. I'll keep going, or? Mm-hmm.
Well, the other one that screams out to me, actually there are two, but West Somerville, I see a large drop in the local, do we know why?
I don't. I can look back for you about where else people applied from there. I think the other one is significantly different, even though it's still pretty robust, is Brown. It was 80% of the people that lived in that proximity. Now just half of them are looking for that as their first choice. So I can look at West Somerville just to give you a little more detail.
Thank you. Through the chair, do you have, I mean, this is really useful, but I'm also super curious of what they choose, because to me there's like a strong difference between, you know, someone from West choosing East and someone from East choosing Winter Hill. I mean, maybe that's not a great example. East choosing Healy. Like, you know, is it, I'm just curious, you know, and I'm sure you don't have that right now, but if in next year's presentation, like, it'd be easy enough to create. I would love to sort of see, you know, this as layer one, but layer two, like, how far do they go? Mm-hmm. Because to me, that's an interesting data point on, like, you know, is it just a little outside the neighborhood, or are people like, there's a program I want at this school and I'm really willing to like travel across the city to get my kid there?
Sure. We won't have to wait till next year. We can email it to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's really exciting.
No problem. Just in case people are interested in class averages, the next slide is essentially about how many students do we have in each grade and how many classrooms are those. You'll get that information as well next week in the budget presentation, but just to give you kind of an idea of which grades are maybe fuller on average than others. And again, just K-8 classrooms. And every year we share a little bit about our newcomer, and this information is thanks to the MLE department and Erica Da Silva who helped prepare it. I just want to call attention to the number of students that are coming, which is less. So just want to mark that, and in particular on one of the next slides we'll talk about the number of students who are newcomers that have come since January 20th. So I just wanted to point out to you that we have a larger number of countries and more languages, but fewer total students that are newcomers enrolling this year in the district. And similar countries, so that's not a big change in where students are coming from, but that is a big change compared to especially 2 or 3 years ago. And just other changes that we'll have in the district as you know, the DESE guidelines changed. Before, we used to have a separate sheltered English immersion class for kindergarten that we did an adjustment this year and added more schools. Children that need English language support will go to any school in the district, which I think is great to have a more integrated school population. So just so you know, that will include the 3 schools that have up to now not received SEI 1 students in kindergarten. So this year, Brown, West, and Kennedy will join the other schools in the district. In addition, because of the construction that's going to be done at Argenziano to help with a 5th grade that's large, we'll have that there. And just additionally, we've done some own work in our kind of internal procedures, just trying to double check our work and do a better job with quality assurance. So we have a second review system in our office. So those are all kind of big changes for us, maybe things that people wouldn't see, but takes a lot of flexibility from staff who've been there for decades, and there's a new way of working. So people have been very receptive and helpful to each other. We're going to check your work, I'll check my work, you know, that back and forth. So for us, that's been a big deal, just to be able to make sure we have some consistency across our work. And just a few more enrollment notes. People might ask, I thought, how many newcomers have we had? So we got this data for a little bit earlier in April, so this doesn't include the last week or two, but we've only had 16 newcomers since January 20th, which I would say is less. I was able to get from MLE the exact number, but I just wanted to be honest about that. And then in terms of class sizes, you know, I was just asked to highlight where are there places where there are classrooms that are essentially full. We're not adding any more students to now. And just to give you a sense also of where there are classrooms that are maybe enrolled so that you could actually consolidate classes. We know that there's obligations to inform the union and get involved. So I just wanted to let you know there's 2 schools that currently have kindergartens that have less than 12 students in each of the classes. So that information is there. And I know Dr. Crumlin has been speaking with principals about that, but just wanted to highlight those classrooms which are pretty full and classrooms which are not full in terms of the K-8 side. I have a slide about Winter Hill. I feel like people always want to know kind of where the population is with that, if you're interested. So I'll email that to everybody. We're essentially the same place that we were at October 1st. It's up by a few students, but that's newcomers, about 400 students. So just want to name that. And just to thank all the people that we work with. It's a very bureaucratic process that we run. So again, we try to put a human face behind that bureaucracy, but we're asking people for almost everything but their shoe size and blood type. You know, we're asking for a lot of forms. So we're very grateful to the families that help us with that process, and just our school clerks and family liaisons, folks in the student support staff, and our supervisors of attendance help us with families that don't have the documents that normally we would need. The MLE department's always doing for us lots of assessment, and the health department are the ones who really support families when they come in without any health documents, without health insurance. So just want to acknowledge all those folks that help us. So happy to get back to you with information about kind of second and third choices. And I think there was one other question I just want to make sure that I wrote down. Can someone remind me if there's something else I should say? And happy to answer any other questions people might have.
Great, thank you for that. Are there any other questions from my colleagues? Yep, Dr. Phillips?
Thanks through you. Thank you for that amazing presentation, as always. It's super illuminating. Could you illuminate for us a little bit, why did you decide you needed additional quality assurance?
I think because we have folks that have worked in the office for 28 years on average, and so some people knew, like myself, but we felt like one parent had one person for pre-K, and then they enrolled with another person for K, and the document they provided for pre-K, the person thought was fine, and the document they provided for K was not. And I think it was, oh, we changed, some things need to be notarized, we offer free notary services, we have 20 notaries in the city that will do that for families as well as our office. So some things changed, like what we asked people to provide was different. Before you could just sign yourself to say, I live in Somerville. Now we need someone to say, okay, here's a bill that shows that you live in a house with someone in Somerville. So some of that was internal changes, but I think just like anything, I was 3 years, now 3 years in the office, and I think I noticed that in college admission work, no one just reads the file once, right? Things are always checked twice. So I do think it's better for us to have kind of internal standard, and I think Nancy Holmes in our office, who's the data quality assurance support, she also helped bring that forward and say, how can we do this so parents aren't getting mixed messages? You talked to one person who said the bill from 3 months ago is okay, and the other person said, oh no, I thought our rule was 60 days. Oh, it's been 2 months since they came. So I think sometimes it's smaller things, but I didn't want to give families a different message one year when they applied for pre-K and a different year with K, or someone who said, oh, my neighbor said she just gave this and it's fine. So I think it's helpful for us to just norm ourselves and do that. So I think just like anything, it's a change in practice, but I think everybody's been, very generous with that. And also I think families, they're getting the same message. So I think that's important, that if we're holding someone to a standard that we need a lease, if you don't have a lease, here's the 3 alternatives. Let's make sure we've written that out and it's very clear. And like I said, we also have our supervisors of attendance who will go visit people at home. You're newly arrived and don't have those documents, great, we'll do that first, then we'll get the documents from you later. So I think that process of us being more open as an office with each other and our work was important, and also to say that I am, supposedly the director and the boss, and I need help. I need someone to look over my work as well, because I might have been doing something and then I got a phone call or someone showed up. It's just easy. We do so much back-end data work that we don't want to have the data wrong when you pull from Aspen, because we didn't put this person as multi-race, or we didn't put this person as having the right proximity. I just think it's not a quiet, closed, you're not able to be someone who's in your own office working quietly with the door closed when you're doing data entry. You're doing that in the middle of what's hopefully a very welcoming office, and a little child who's running down the hall because someone had a language assessment, and then somebody needed something. So I think because it's work that gets interrupted often, I think it's important to have a chance for someone else to look at it in a very open way. And we all make mistakes, me included, but just having an office culture where, hey, I just wasn't sure. Today I called a family who it was a little bit unclear who the parent was based off the birth certificate, and so people are able to get a backstory, and you can ask in a very open, interested way, where I said, I'm so sorry, we're just doing our second check, and I just had a question. We're able to say, oh, the birth certificate's actually wrong. Oh, okay, now we can fix that this was a surrogacy, and this is how this child came, and we want to make sure that we're addressing all our documents right. But if we don't look at each other's work, sometimes that can just go by the wayside. So it's not any indictment of what was done before. I think it's just easier for us to have a little bit more open work environment where we can look at each other's work, and that's the norm. It's not outside of the norm that we second check and help each other out. Long-winded answer, sorry.
So I have a question about middle school grades.
Yes.
And I know there's a dip in numbers, which I know we have typically every year. And I was just curious, is the dip sort of typical to every year, is my first question. And then since we don't have enrollment numbers for high school on here, do we know if these are students who go to private school, are many of them coming back for high school, or if these are students that move, then obviously that's a separate question.
Sure, I can get you kind of historical, could have included that. We do have a number of students from private school that join the high school. I'd say it's a very popular option. Right now, the people who have applied, there's probably at least 25 students that have applied for high school in 9th grade. 22 of them are coming from private school. So I think that is something that continues to, and it's just for now. There'll be people that move in the summer that move from California, or there's other folks, but the folks who have already committed to private, to Somerville High School are usually private school students first. But I'm happy to look at kind of what the numbers would say about whether that middle school's, the 7th grade dip there, is that traditionally something that's been harder, middle school's not as desired, or is it something that's just that as that crew goes through, or that cohort?
Thank you. Are there other questions? Mr. Green, and then Ms. Patel.
So that's actually a nice segue to my question. So we are seeing a decline in newcomers, a drastic one. Our pre-K and K enrollments have not recovered from COVID. But our overall numbers have. Is that being driven by, as you just may have hinted, increased people coming into the district or transferring from private schools to the district? And is it sustainable? Or are we looking at 2-3 years from now a collapse in our enrollment numbers if as it seems unlikely, newcomers numbers don't rebound?
Yes, I wouldn't agree completely that our pre-K and K haven't recovered. I would say that we were, the high before COVID was 226 for pre-K, now we're 212, but similar to what it had been 18, 19. So I wouldn't say that that is a collapse. I would say that Somerville, like many districts, newcomers have kept the numbers up in the district, and long-term, our enrollment study would say that we may have, over time, less students. I don't think that we're going to go down by any significant number just based on what we see, aside from that newcomer number. So I can give you or send along kind of the number of new students that are enrolling by grade and do that historically. So you could see that I think we are having a number of students that join us from private school that I think continues as a trend as people return somewhat to public school. We have a few students every year that will come to us from homeschool and different opportunities like that as well. I do think the district should be prepared long-term for a smaller cohort, not by hundreds, but maybe it's tens over years decline. That's my impression over the past few years, but I don't see a complete collapse. I do think that I did want to highlight that number of newcomers because I think that will be very different perhaps this summer than it has been in the past.
Joan?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think my question is probably more for the superintendent, but it's related to the classrooms that have under-enrollment in the kindergartens. And I don't know if you're ready to talk about anything, changes that you might want to be making or how to address particularly the Healy and the Winter Hill. And again, this could be something that gets followed up on afterwards.
Yeah, I can have a much more in-depth response to that, but I can give you a quick response as to those two particular schools. We had 3 strands of kindergarten at the Healy, and we decided that there was not enough enrollment there just to continue 3 strands. So the average in our district is 2, so we actually decided to keep the 2 strands in kindergarten, similar like the other schools, and then increase the number or open up a different classroom as a result of that. But at the Winter Hill, the situation is a little bit different. We have made a commitment to the Winter Hill to make sure that as a result of the change in location that we were committed to keeping a 2-strand of kindergarten to make sure that there was not a kind of a projected closure of the grade level, so it does limit the kind of the pipeline of students into the school. So the numbers are low. We could, in theory, combine them, but again, it's a commitment that we have made to the Winter Hill community, and so we'll continue to assess that as we go. But I just wanted to piggyback on what Teresa just said, was that if you look at our trajectory, we have been the increase that we have had has been the best since probably 11 years. So it's almost a decade of steady growth. Is it going to be sustained? That's a question that we don't have much. The trends nationwide and probably worldwide are the same, is that the decrease of families having 2 or 3 kids in a household is decreasing across the board. So most likely that's going to be the case for us as well. But for now, we're steady. We have a steady growth.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you again for joining us, Teresa. Right.
Dr. Jessica Boston, can you introduce the next?
Thank you, the chair. Good evening, everyone, and I'm excited to introduce our final 2 schools in the school improvement planning process. I do want to just orient you to the packets, the online packets that you have. There is a folder that should have the improvement plans from every school. So we were able to see the presentations over the past few meetings, over the past several meetings, but accompanying each PowerPoint presentation, there's a written plan, which is something that is a slight shift in practice, just trying to make that a bit more aligned across the board. So you should see that in your packet for each school. I do want to, again, just thank Sam Elegine for all of her work on this. She really has put a really concerted effort to streamline and align to our strategic plan, the plans, and has provided a lot of feedback and guidance in driving this process, so I really do thank her. And with that, I'm excited to welcome up our principal from Next Wave Full Circle for our first school improvement plan presentation for this evening. Margaret Green.
Hi, everybody. You guys are going to be clicking forward for me, right? Am I in charge of that? Okay, thank you. So I'm Margaret DePasquale. I am the principal of Next Wave Junior High and Full Circle High School. And Jack is with me.
I'll come up in a minute, but I'm Jack Haverty, the assistant principal and special ed coordinator.
So you can move to the next slide. I always like to start off with our mission statement and our core values, because those are really our grounding documents and how I make decisions of what happens at Next Wave and Full Circle. And just real quickly, I'll just read. Next Wave and Full Circle is a tight-knit school community for students who have experienced academic setbacks and benefit from a personalized approach to learning. In order to meet these needs of our students, we emphasize trusting relationships, authentic learning experiences, growth mindset, and student voice and choice as essential components in our daily work. Our students graduate with the skill set needed to adapt to challenges and to lead meaningful and productive lives. And we center our time at Next Wave and Full Circle around our 5 core values of collaboration, responsibility, empathy, resilience, and excellence. And this year, this is the official rollout and showcase of our new school mascot. We are calling ourselves the Next Wave Full Circle Goats. And I do want to just explain a little bit of the process, because when we speak about student voice and choice, this was 100% student-driven. They felt very strongly that we need a school mascot. And we have a school spirit committee, and the school spirit committee, this took most of the school year, really researched different school mascots. We couldn't take what's already used in the district, and they wanted to find the symbolism that felt appropriate for Next Wave and Full Circle. There was a voting, there was some focus groups, and this was how we landed on the goats. And the students just wanted to highlight that they see this goat as goats represent greatness, they represent excellence, they represent resilience and curiosity, and that a goat's independent spirit also symbolizes its desire to move forward confidently. So that is how we kind of landed on our goats, and we had a whole nother separate logo design process. And so this is the design that we've landed on, and we have new t-shirts rolling out this week. So we're very excited about that. And so I wanted to highlight that here tonight. You can move on to the next slide. So, our priorities, and when we started our redesign process about 8 or 9 years ago, we landed on our priorities around competencies, project-based learning, making sure we have authentic learning experiences for our students. And so that, hopefully, as we're going through our goals later on, you'll see them kind of all connect to our priorities, our mission statement, and our core values. Can move ahead to the next slide. So just to remind folks and folks that have been with us for a while, Next Wave and Full Circle started a redesign process in 2016, and it's a multi-year process. It took a while. We are still, developing and reiterating where we are with our competencies and our projects. But I'm just really proud of the work that we've accomplished in this time. And I do want to highlight, and we can talk more about it later, but Next Wave and Full Circle has been also a model for other schools across the Commonwealth and also in other states. We've had schools from Maine come and visit us. They want to learn about how we rolled out a redesign, why we made the decisions we made. And the other important thing is, everyone here knows, Full Circle and Next Wave is a really old school. We're, 51, 52 years old institution in our city, and to do a redesign in a really well-established school does take a lot of work. And so I've just been really proud of that work, and being able to share it with other alternative school leaders has just been a great thing, both for us, because we're learning as we share our experiences with others. Move on to the next slide. To talk about enrollment, so Next Wave, as you know, is our middle school, grades 6 through 8. We currently have 20 students at Next Wave. Next Wave does go up to 24 students. 95% of our students at Next Wave have an IEP. And 15% of our students are English language learners. Our 8th graders are our largest cohort, and that is pretty typical at Next Wave. At Full Circle High School, we're grades 9 through 12. We currently are at 71 students. We take a maximum of 72. So we are full, just about at capacity. We always like to leave one seat available for emergency move-ins and needs like that. 72% of our students at Full Circle have an IEP. And our largest grade right now is our 12th grade, which is not usually typical. We have 24 12th graders, which is our largest 12th grade class that I have been a part of in my 25 years here. So really proud of that our students have been with us. The other graph, shout out to Sam Ellergene and the data team and rolling out the Open Architects database for us. But this next graph that I'm sharing is just our enrollment by month, and it's pretty typical that our enrollment kind of shoots up in the fall after the first quarter of school has kind of gone through. So that's pretty typical, that we're pretty stable when school starts, and then we kind of shoot up through the fall. You can head to the next slide. So we focused our school improvement goals, within the district template of academic equity, wellness and joy, and parent engagement. But we're going to talk tonight about portfolios, our reading needs at our school, student voice, which I talked a little bit about already, and how we're going to really leverage our parents as academic partners in the coming years.
So the graph you see right here is what we call our FaceTime data, and that's not like the iPhone FaceTime. Back in 2016, 2017, we started tracking the maximum hours per month, so 6.5 hours a day times however many days that you have school. Subtracting absences would be like a whole 6.5 hours. Tardies, however late you are, if you get dismissed, or time that you spend in the process room and not in class. So we could really track each individual kid's FaceTime and how much time they're spending in class. And what you'll see is the red graph is Full Circle, the blue graph is Next Wave. We tend to have a little bit better attendance at Next Wave, so that's why the blue is always higher. But you'll notice that it's fairly steady the whole way through. And the reason for that is because one SST a month, we look at the kids with the lowest FaceTime data and try and come up with a plan to bring them up so they're not at the bottom, and that has been really effective. We lost our way a little bit at COVID because we did this 2016-17 year all the way up to COVID, and then we stopped because we were in survival mode, and now we're doing it again, and we found it really helpful. Next slide. So this is something that I'm actually using for my goal, but I think the best way to figure out how well kids are doing at Next Wave and Full Circle is to look at their percentage of classes passed. So these are kids that have experienced years and years of academic setbacks, and so many of them are used to failing. And so when we went from semesters and quarters to trimesters last year, we started tracking what percentage of classes students were passing. So the beginning of last year was just under 61% of all core classes were being passed. And then last trimester that just ended a few weeks ago, it was all the way up just below 75%. So we're trying to get that above 75%. And so far, it seems to be working. The kids are really taking ownership of their showcases at the end of the trimesters and recognizing what it takes to pass a class and be resilient.
So I just pulled some of our conditions for learning data results And I wanted to highlight that our students, oh, I lost my notes there for a second. Our students are looking for teachers to be giving them feedback. They're looking for opportunities to set academic goals. They want a voice in what they learn. Our high school students have more choice than our middle school students, but they do get to select their classes. And our students, also want to discover new things in their learning. And that's kind of how we shape, the courses that we're offering students and how teachers are providing feedback and guidance for students at the end of each, actually halfway through the trimester and then at the end of each trimester. You can move to the next slide. So our goal during this school improvement planning is really focusing on developing a portfolio system. The past couple of years, we've been working on student ownership of their academic learning. And we've tried a lot of different ways, but with the rollout of our competencies and our projects and our students being really proud of the projects that they present each trimester, we want to develop a portfolio system so that by the time they graduate, they have a full portfolio of what they've accomplished in their time at Next Wave and Full Circle. And one of the ways one action step, and Jack can talk a little bit more about this, but we're excited that we are piloting a new program called Jump Rope. And Jump Rope is a platform where we're using as our grading platform, and it's strictly set to competencies. And so we'll be able to see what competencies students are making progress in, where they still need to grow, and that is also going to help students take ownership of their own grades and their learning. If you want to add more about the Jump Rope program.
Yeah, this fall I had the opportunity to go to New Orleans and participate in the Aurora Symposium, or Institute Symposium. It was basically all schools who are doing either competency-based education or innovative or trying to educate students that have struggled. And most of the work that I did down there was trying to find the right platform for us to use. I found 3 platforms that were all pretty solid, but by far the best one was the Jump Rope platform. And what it really does is, we have, just like Somerville High does, we have our core requirements that everybody needs. Right now we use a number of credits on top of the requirements that shows that you've had enough courses. And we're trying to transition to just showing that students are competent in the 15 attainments and the 5 competencies that we have, as opposed to using just generic credits. So this Jump Rope system is going to allow us, and we've piloted it this trimester. It's really amazing, and I think it's going to really change the way we can show which kids have which skills and which kids need to work on certain things before they graduate.
And just to add to that before we flip to the next slide is our seniors got their progress reports the week before vacation. And some of the seniors were looking at the Jump Rope transcript, how it kind of prints out, and they were so excited that they'll have access to it someday, and the seniors are graduating, so they won't need access to it next year. But it was just exciting to see students excited about how they can see their learning and see their progress in classes. So I'm excited for our full rollout of that in the fall. You can flip to the next slide. So when we come to the equity goal, our equity focus area is on reading. We have a large number of students that are reading at least 2 grade levels below where they should. And so that data is not great. It's not very flattering. And so it's an area that we really need to focus on. We want to make sure that our students have the right access and supports to the reading that all students have in the district. We are using the iReady assessment testing, which has been wonderful to kind of see where we need to start and providing our students with support. Our goal is certainly to be working with the special ed department and making sure the students that have reading in their IEPs are getting the reading support they need, but also providing we don't call it X block, we call it WIN block, but providing reading interventions during that WIN block time so that students that need the extra time and support with reading are getting it, and we want to prioritize that in our schedule next year. So that will be the heart of our equity focus in the coming years. Sorry, I talked about that slide. And so now when it comes to our Wellness and Joy data, this is where, we want to focus on student voice and perspective. I shared a little bit about how we, kind of came up with our school mascot this year. The data we have for this is a little bit all over the place. Some students are feeling like they do have a voice and they feel like they are connected and belong, and then there are some students that don't. And we want that data to be a little bit more consistent. We have some student government blocks, but we want them to be a little bit more robust with student voice. And I was hoping to bring students with me tonight. They shied away from it at the last minute as we were leaving school today. But we had a class, my social studies teacher and my ELL teacher taught a class called the Change Makers, and they used a curriculum from the Rennie Center, and they focused, it was really kind of open-ended, and the students kind of narrowed the focus down to 2 focus areas. One was peer mediation, and the other was access to food at school. And they did focus groups, they interviewed students, they interviewed staff, and they found that students are very hungry during the school day, and that the stretch from breakfast to lunch is a long stretch, and they want to find other ways to get access to food during the school day. And so out of that class, these students kind of are creating their own student government group. And I don't know if they quite have a name for it yet, but they want to develop a community fridge at Next Wave and Full Circle, that students have access to food and snack items during our break time in the morning and later in the afternoon before they get dismissed. And I just think that's just a prime example of how we want to utilize student voice at our school. And certainly, I shared the school mascot. Our students, we have a school spirit committee. Jack and I run a principal roundtable committee. There's lots of different committee opportunities that we are really trying to bring students into how we kind of run our day at Next Wave Full Circle. And so we're hoping that, that we see an increase in the students' sense of belonging and participation in school community. And our last focus area on parents and community, you can flip to the next slide. So the data we have is great data. Our parents feel welcomed at our school. Our parents know where to get the information at our school. But at middle school and high school level, we don't get a ton of parent involvement. We don't get a lot of participation at PTA nights and things like that. But our parents are involved. They'll come to meetings, they'll get on a Zoom call, they'll hop on a text or a phone call. But as we're rolling out our competencies in this new Jump Rope program, what we really want is our parents to be academic partners. We want them to understand the academic programming at our school. We want them to be able to engage in conversations with their students about what they're learning at Next Wave and Full Circle. So our focus over the next 2 or 3 years is really bringing parents into the fold on the academic side of our programming, and rolling out some parent information nights on how we're going to be using Jump Rope. Parents will have access to that portal as well, so they'll be able to see their child's growth in classes, and then eventually hopefully get to some student-led conferences and hopefully get more parent involvement with our student-led conferences. We do, and you can flip to the next slide. I honestly can't remember if I put this on the next slide or not. But we do have parents that come to our showcases. All parents are invited to Showcase Day, and parents come. If they can't come, they'll FaceTime their child while the child is presenting the showcase, which is wonderful. I feel like that's one of the huge benefits that came out of COVID, is just the normalcy of FaceTiming and zooming in on things. So that's just been a wonderful, over the past year, just more and more parents are coming to our student showcases, whether in person or virtually. And so we just want them to be more academic partners with us. So that, you can go to the next slide. So that concludes our school improvement plan. As I said at the beginning, when we started with the mission statement, we really want our students to feel not just connected to school, but that they are strong readers, that they have a voice in their community, whether it's their school community or the community they live in, and that they're really independent and exploring the world around them. And, you know, as I said, our goal is to make sure our graduates leave with the skill set they need to lead productive and meaningful lives. And so, you know, that's why, you know, all these goals, I hope, are connected in that vision of where we are. And the last slide is a picture of some of our graduates. It's not everybody, but that's a good chunk of the students that will be graduating on June 4th. So.
All right, thank you so much. I'm sure my colleagues will have questions or comments. I'll give everyone a moment to process. Yes, Ms. Patone, and then Dr. Ekman, and then Mr. Green.
Thank you. Through you, I wanted to thank you in particular for, you know, you always do an excellent job of framing the mission of the school. I think that's something that we all feel on the school committee that's really important, is to let people understand that sort of an older perception of what this program is and the reality of how you as a team and in partnership with the students and families are really meeting the needs of complicated kids that weren't able to be successful in a more traditional environment. So that's really important to me. And I also wanted to also compliment the fact that you put the timeline for the redesign. That was also really valuable to see, and I'll be looking forward to hearing more about how this review and refine process is going. Sometimes what happens is we do this work and then it goes in the rearview mirror, but I think it's really important that people understand that this has been ongoing for several years, and there has been significant changes and improvements in the outcomes for our students. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And I use the timeline for myself to help me reflect also on like where we've been and how far we've come since then. So thank you for that.
Dr. Ekman, Mr. Green, and then Ms. Parrish.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you. Congratulations on graduating. Did you say 20 kids?
We're hoping to have 20 on stage. Yep.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
That's a big deal. I'm excited to hear about jump rope. I'm very excited about competency-based education, what it means for your students. Ideally, you know, where y'all lead, it seems like we can start to get the rest of the district to follow. So, you know, if you don't mind, like, what are you expecting to see? Like, because, you know, competency-based learning is great, but if, you know, like, is there a chance potentially for like frustration as kids maybe are putting in effort, sincere effort, but aren't grasping material, and like challenges with that? Or is the anticipation that there is a possibility that, you know, a child may be finished with their competency-based learning, you know, at the age of 15? And if so, you know, if compulsory education is at least till 16, what do you, like,
those are great questions, because I think, you know, twofold. One is I have the timeline out there to like really understand, like, rolling out competencies takes time. It's not something you just like, oh, I'm going to go to a PD on it and then roll it out the following year. It takes time, and there's a lot of reiteration that has to happen. And we're at the point now where, to your question, is what competencies have our students met so far? And Aspen, we do our grade on Aspen, we have no real way of capturing that in a way we can look at the data as a whole school. Our ILT started to do that in the fall, and it was so cumbersome because we were going through each kid's individual Google Docs. It was just a lot of work. So we're hoping to learn, you know, where our students are meeting the competencies, how quickly are they meeting them, you know, what. Is there a cycle that we have to go through? Should, you know, other schools that do competency, you know, kids have to meet them more than once. You're not just showing competency one time. There's multiple cycles that you show it so that you, right, like, you know, freshman year, you can go through all the competencies, but does that mean you're really competent? Competencies usually means multiple times of showing and meeting those expectations. So that's the data we're hoping to gather and to see where are we with our competencies. And do we need to make changes? You know, next year, if I'm presenting next year, there'll be another block on the timeline of where we are, or what changes we need to make. And hopefully, maybe even in the fall or next winter, we can definitely do a presentation on where we are with jump rope, and, is it a program that is doing what we hoped it would, or not?
Follow-up? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for helping me remember, in my mind, grades are binaries, and so, ergo, I transferred competencies as binaries, but they're not, and you're right, and thank you for pointing that out and reiterating that.
Mr. Green, and then Ms. Parrish.
Okay, well, I have several questions, but Dr. Ivan asked my first one. I'm also super excited about jump rope and can't wait to hear more in depth. So my first question, well, before I get my first question, let me also thank you. You know that I have been in love with Next Wave Full Circle for all my time on school committee, but this year it's gotten more personal for me. So thank you for the work you're doing, and it really matters. But in particular, I think this question actually may be more for the district than for you. When I hear about the percentage of Next Wave students who are 3 grade levels below, the first thing that comes to mind was that's not your fault, right?
It's not.
Right.
No, I don't, but we have to do something about it.
Those are students.
Yeah.
But, I think very deeply about, does that show there's a need for the kind of Next Wave interventions earlier in our schooling system than 7th grade? And if so, have we given thought to what that could look like?
I do think that's a district question, but I will say this. I know the district is rolling out new curriculum and new programming, and so I think we need to see where that goes. That's building up over the years. So I do think we need to see where that's going, because we're utilizing it too, and I want to, learn, because we're receiving students, but not all students that we receive are coming from Somerville Public Schools. They're coming from other programming as well. So, but I still think, we have a new program, we have new curriculum coming out in the elementary grades that, I'm learning with my K-8 colleagues, how that's rolling out, and hopefully we're going to see changes soon in students reading.
Ms. Parrish?
Thank you. Through you, first, thank you for being here tonight with us. The progress that you're seeing with the switch to the trimester model is really interesting and exciting. My assumption is that it's related to the fact that students are taking fewer courses in each block, but if there's more to it, please share.
This is our second year with trimesters. It has been going really well. We extended our class time, so students are in class for 65 minutes for each class, and they're done with their project, and so they start a whole new project for trimester 2, and then a whole new, and they're taking doing 3 projects at a time. It is working really well. We're still kind of seeing the success of that. It also has helped us stabilize our schedule, so students eat lunch at the same time every day. There's more consistency, some feedback we got from students. As Jack said, COVID, we were just trying to survive and get through and move into a new building and all of those things. But there was a lot of changes day to day in how our schedule was. So students love that, lunch is at the same time every single day. Every single day, I know first period meets at the same time every day. There's no flipping and switching of that. So students are also really loving that. And that's not necessarily about trimesters, that's just some scheduling stuff that we worked on just to make things a little bit more routine and predictable for our students.
So I just wanted to quickly ask a follow-up, since you mentioned moving into the new building, and I know there were some growing pains at the beginning, or I don't know if growing pains are the word, but some difficulties with being in the high school, and I'm wondering how you guys are feeling about the space these days.
Yeah, anytime you move into a new space, you have to learn the quirks of it, right? You have to learn the new system of it. As you guys know, my staff is a very veteran staff. They were very kind of ingrained at the 3rd floor of the Edgerly building. That was our home for most of us for many years. So it was just about learning the new spaces. There are definitely some quirks to the building that, I wish I had more space for pull-out and one-on-one and that kind of work that we need to do with students. I do sometimes wish we had more straight lines of vision to see. There's a lot of nooks and crannies that students will always find a way to hide, but so sometimes I just wish we had just better sight lines. But since the field opened up last spring, and since the field's been opened up, and there's just our entrance is our entrance, and it definitely, I go through my day and not even interact with Somerville High at all. So I think there's definitely we're getting used to it, I guess is my point. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I also would say it's not a coincidence that this is the first time we're at capacity. I think our collaboration with Somerville High School is starting to, we're doing a better job of communicating and seeing which students really do well. CTE has been the biggest difference. Every single student that wants to do CTE is now allowed to. And there are growing pains with that too, because they go into a bigger environment, but they're given the chance, and they're given multiple chances. And most of our kids really do need that chance. So not having CTE is kind of, for me, like a deal breaker going if we ever went backwards or anything.
And I just have to add that the Somerville High team is just wonderful to work with. Ms. Kirsten and her team have just been wonderful. And anything I ask, they were like, well, we'll see if we can make that work. And we were up at the Multicultural Fair. It was amazing. And that's stuff that we wouldn't necessarily have access to easily if we were in a different building. So thank you to the Somerville High team.
Glad to hear it. I had Mr. Green and then Dr. Ackman.
This is just a follow-up, so I wanted to jump the line. There is one quirk that I think that Superintendent Carmona, Assistant Superintendent Boston Davis, and I discovered recently that I want to make sure we have on the to fix this officially, which is that one of the next wave classrooms is directly below the weight room.
Yes, and it's not just one classroom, it's multiple classrooms that feel the energy of the weight room, both the vibrations and the thunder.
I have been informed by faculty that it has occasionally. As someone who does not get started by loud noises, it made me jump more than a few times, so I can imagine sort of some of our more students with.
It does, but again, I need to just say, Alicia, Nicole Veely are really responsive. So if I'm having a meeting in one of those rooms, I jump as well. And so I sometimes have to, someone from my team will go up and just say, hey, can you guys stop dropping the medicine ball or the weights? And they're, they might, I don't know how the students feel about it, but they stop. And I can get through a meeting.
Yeah.
So
I am confident that our teams are working like professionals to ameliorate the problem, but I do want to officially say we should probably talk to the city about, are there things we can do to dampen the sound at least, or to think about, structurally how to, if not fix the problem, because I don't know if it can be fixed at this point, but at least lessen the impact.
And I will say this, I have raised this with Ralph Henry and some of the building team, even when we first moved in. So I know others are becoming aware of this issue, but it has been ongoing. I don't know what structurally can be done, but talk about resiliency. Our students who are easily distracted and dysregulated, they have been really resilient and worked through that noise. It's pretty amazing.
Dr. Ackman, and then Ms. Barish and Dr. Phillips, and then back to Mr. Green.
Thank you, through the chair. It is my understanding, so I'm going to brag on this for you for a second, that a number of your students are also duly enrolled in Bunker Hill. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
So I wanted to brag on that, but my question, because that's also a big deal and I want to celebrate that. I'm curious, kids took, my understanding is since the vote about MCAS, there are different stakes for all of Somerville students, but your students who are taking MCAS, have you noticed a difference in their attitude towards it, how they feel about it,
I will
And
Yeah,
you,
I've
if
noticed
you
a
don't want to
difference.
answer, that's okay.
Well, no, I definitely noticed a difference with my 10th graders. So this year, this current 10th grade, they took ELA in March. Their math is coming up at the end of the month. We had the best attendance for MCAS than we've ever had. I only had one student absent, and that student is currently out of district in a different placement, and I believe she took it at that placement. So attendance was great. I don't know if effort, we won't know until we get scores. I'm hoping effort matches attendance, but we'll see. My middle school's been, pretty much the same. Their attendance is pretty solid, and their effort is the same as I think last year. And they're taking math tomorrow, so hopefully, what they put into the ELA, they'll also put into the math. Yep.
Barish?
Thank you. Through you, I'm curious about is there a sort of typical trajectory for a student three-year program? And if so, what does it look like? I guess what I'm wondering is, if a student comes in 6th grade, what are the chances that they graduate in 12th grade from your school as opposed to from the high school or somewhere else?
That's a great question. I think that's changed over the years. Certainly when students start with us in 6th grade, and I'll say this, mostly kids, we get a lot of 7th graders. Like right now we only have 2 6th graders. They do have an opportunity to transfer to Somerville High, and that's something we start working on with student and family early on if that is their goal. I think currently out of the 11 8th graders we have, we're going to be transitioning just one to Somerville High in the fall. The rest will be transitioning to Full Circle. But we could run that data for you and see. I know every year, because I spend so much time with them, it's like, gosh, I feel like I've been with this student forever, but I have, because they've been with us since 7th grade, and then they graduate. And then when students graduate from Full Circle, a couple of things. We do have some students that transition to Somerville High in the 10th grade. They'll kind of do one more year with us, do the exploratory, kind of dip their toe into the high school environment and see whether or not that's really for them, and if it is, we'll help them transition. We have a couple of students that transitioned to Somerville High last year. We have 2 students that are graduating with Somerville High. They're still my students, even though they're at Somerville High, but they're graduating this June. And then from there, from graduation, we do have students that explore Bunker Hill, explore vocational programming. They work really closely with our guidance counselor to figure out the next steps for post-secondary. But we can certainly run the data, because we haven't really done that in a while, to see, of the kids that start with us in middle school, their trajectory towards high school and then past high school.
If I may. Yeah, I guess that wasn't the only thing I was wondering, but I guess sort of how long most students are, they could be there for 7 years, right?
Yep.
So is the typical student there for 3 years or 6 years or 7 years? So, and I don't expect an answer tonight. It was just something I was curious
no, we can
about.
run that data, because that's a great question, because our middle school is smaller, right? We only have 24 middle school students. We do get a lot of kids in, either they're repeating 9th grade at Somerville High and they get referred to us, or 10th grade. But that, that 9th, 10th grade seems to be when they get referred and they start with us. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Margaret mentioned it earlier, but about people coming to visit us to kind of emulate a therapeutic alternative school in public settings, especially in urban districts. At this point, Cambridge has been here 3 or 4 times. Medford has been multiple times. Boston asked over the break if they could come. The big thing is that we don't really take seniors that often. Very, very rarely are we taking a senior, where a lot of alternative programs for overaged, underaccredited kids around the state are taking older kids. We've noticed, I think what you're getting at, is that the longer they're there, the more successful they are. But there is no typical student, because they basically fall in 6 different buckets. Some of them come, we have a kid who's 18 turning 19 and only be here for a trimester. That's not typical at all. But we have a bunch of seniors who have been here since 6th and 7th grade. And you would get totally different perspectives from them, but I think the summary would be the longer they're with us, the better.
Dr. Phillips?
Thanks, through you, Chair. Thank you for an amazing presentation, as always. I love listening to what's happening with your school and the progress that you're making. Apologies. While you were talking, light bulbs were going off for me, because I spend my days working on these observational assessments of youth program quality. and I can talk about this because they're freely available to anyone on the internet, but they're best at measuring young people's opportunities, the opportunities adults give young people for voice, choice, planning, and reflection. So I thought that might be useful for you. They're freely available on the Forum for Youth Investment website.
That's great, thank you.
Mr. Green?
Only one more after this, I promise. So, one of the things you highlighted in your report, and I've now gotten to see firsthand, and I don't think I understood before, is how central student governance is to your model. And so this is a request of you to the district or whatever, but I think that's an area where I think as a district we aren't getting it right yet, especially like meaningful student voice. And so I'd love to learn more about how you're doing it at your school and learn how we can take those lessons and really have you lead the way for our other schools and districts. I think would be a really powerful way, especially, you know, to engage populations for whom perhaps access to power isn't their first language, shall we say. And so I'd really love to learn from you all more on how we can do that with all our students.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do a little presentation in the fall on our student government, and happy to come back, bring some students with us.
And if your students won't come to us, maybe some of us will come to them.
Yeah, I'm happy to have that meeting at Next Wave Full Circle, if that makes it easier.
Yeah, no, that'd be great, because the students that did the part of the Changemaker class, it's hard on the Monday after vacation to be like, you want to come to school committee with me tonight? But she's like, can we do it on Wednesday? Like, she was like running through her head other days that she would love to present to you guys, so
yeah.
Certainly.
The answer is yes. Yes, we can.
We can certainly come to you, but also if there's a different Monday that they're inspired by, I'm sure we can figure that out as well.
You can always just, convince them with some dinner afterwards, and they'll, I'm sure they'll take me up on that. I don't know if there's any more questions. I do just want to end, because I love ending on little student snippets, but we had a student, he just started with us on the second day of his visit. He's a middle school student, very nervous, young. On his second day, I asked him how his visit went, and he said, I finally feel like I belong somewhere. And so like that just keeps me going. That's the kind of energy that I need from my students to keep me going and doing this work. So that's just a little snippet of just, how our students,
It's a lovely way to end, but I have one more question.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry. I won't ruin the mood.
Andre.
Because actually, my last question was more of a comment to the community. By my calendar, the Full Circle graduation is June 4th this year.
It's Wednesday, June 4th, 5 o'clock at the Somerville Theater.
It is, I will say, just as a statement of fact, the most moving ceremony that happens in this city in a given year. And so it is my strong urging that anyone who can be there should be there, and bring a handkerchief. You will need it.
It'll be good.
It's the best night of the year.
It is
I'm going to keep coming to those graduations even when I'm not on school
It's going to be a little long this year if we have 20 students and 20 speeches, but.
I'm okay with that. And yeah, it'll be the one thing I keep doing when I'm on school committee.
It'll be good.
All right. With that, we will say goodnight to you and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'm thrilled to welcome up the team from Somerville High School to round us out for our school improvement plans.
Yay!
Are we the last ones out of all the schools? Okay. Before we start, I just also want to give a shout out to Jack and Margaret. Everything they've been talking about, if you haven't gone to visit them during the day, go to, is it a Wednesday community meeting? Oh, yeah. Go to a Wednesday community meeting. You can see the examples of student voice and the kind of work they can do. Oh, okay. Someone else can go and video it for Andre. Go to the student showcases. Just go see them in action, and it's just super impressive. And I think we have developed a pretty good, better continuity between the schools and connection between the schools, and hopefully we'll keep building on that. So before I start, I think you all know me, but I would like to introduce the team that's up here with me.
Joel Villegas, Assistant Principal at Home Community.
Cynthia Massillon, Assistant Principal, Broadway Community.
And Dave DePietro, Social Studies Department Chair.
I'm also a little embarrassed to go after Margaret's beautiful slides, but that's okay. So if you go to the next slide for Somerville High School, our mission and our values are really around embracing our diversity. I mean, when we talk about Somerville High School being diverse, we're talking about culturally, racially, socioeconomically, interests. We have so many different students with so many different interests and so many different levels of readiness, so many different backgrounds, and that shapes our mission, which is around helping every student find and explore their genuine passion and try to support them in finding and developing that passion, and then helping them launch them on whatever pathway that they choose. We developed these guiding principles. The mission and values were really were developed during some work we did with the Barr Foundation pre-pandemic, and then our guiding principles really were developed during remote learning, and they have they still serve us well even after remote learning, keeping equity at the forefront, making sure that we've got everything imbued with, is this really serving all students, is every student getting what they need, making sure that we're building that community and connection among students and staff, being very clear with our communication and providing support to students, and then really focusing on that learning experience, making it authentic, engaging, making sure we're having high expectations for all of our students, and then really trying to build in that student choice and exploration so students can find their passions. On the next slide, I won't go into these in depth, but part of that work with the Barr Foundation was the vision of the graduate, and these are the skills that we want all students to develop no matter what type of learning they're doing or what class they're doing. Teachers can hone in, or counselors or assistant principals or deans can really hone in on some of these skills and help students develop these, because these are what we feel students need to be successful in whatever path they choose. Next slide. There's a lot of data we could go into. You know, we're a very big school. We're at over 1,400 this year. We're creeping up to 1,430 or so. And there's a lot of different data sets. But the ones that are really driving our plan, our school improvement plan, is one around failure rates. We've been working on this for years, and they remain stubbornly high, particularly in our core classes. And actually, this is showing the freshmen and sophomore, the 9th and 10th graders, but some of our 11th grade core class failure rates tend to pop off the charts too. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out what it is. Is it our grading system? Is it what we're asking students to do? Is it their previous training? Is it life? You know, is it all these things? We've been trying to dive into it, but those failure rates, while they've gotten better, are still stubbornly higher than we want them to be. The next data set that is driving our plan, on the next slide, is really this correlation between absences and failure, and honestly, absences and everything that's negative, or good attendance goes with success, and the poor attendance goes with students who are not being as successful. This is data that we ran from last year, and you can just see this clear correlation between if students aren't in class, they're not passing the classes. And you can see some of those absence rates are really high. These absence rates are class absences, so they have combined together both school daily absences and if a student is cutting class or leaving early or if they're tardy. I've also had some of the department chairs run the correlation between class attendance and MCAS scores or other scores, and there's no surprise there, right? There's a strong correlation between not going to class and not doing well in school. Next slide. The slide that you originally got, I realized there was a glitch in the science MCAS data, so I reran this from a different source. But basically, the MCAS data over the past 5 years, the message is we're pretty stagnant. There's not a lot of changes, particularly if you do things where you add up the percentages of students who are in the top 2 categories and in the bottom 2 categories. They're really moving like a percentage or two over the years. And we know our students are capable of more. So what we've been doing is not, we're not the lowest of schools with demographics like ours, but we know our students are capable of a lot more, and we haven't really moved the needle. Our departments have really moved the needle in some ways, like in an open response or an area that they've identified as an area that students are not scoring well dwell on, but overall, we're not really moving the needle. And you can see that third bullet, our science department chair ran for last year. You can see the strong correlation between not going to school, not going to class, and not doing well on the MCAS. The one data point that maybe actually is a significant increase is our ELA, because while our percentages are staying roughly the same, I know the benchmark for passing for ELA went up last year, and yet our data stayed the same, so that's probably a pretty good success. Other caveat, I think the MCAS data up to when it counted for graduation, I think we're going to have to start over and recalibrate now that it doesn't count for graduation. I think we had a great participation in our ELA MCAS, but we also had lots of anecdotal evidence of, yeah, I wrote one essay, that was enough, you know? And so we'll see what happens with that data when we get it. You can just go quickly through the next 3 slides. Really all they're showing you is that those percentages from year to year are staying roughly the same. So our theory of action here, we're sort of taking this version of our school improvement plan is more at a macro level. Our theory of action is if we need to get kids to come to school, and when they come to school, we need them to go to class. And if we do that, almost all of our data points should improve. And the way we're going to do that is the quality of what's in the classroom, more student-centered, engaging curriculum, refining our systems of support and intervention, strengthening our partnership with families and caregivers, and creating more student ownership and leadership in and out of the classroom. And a through line through this that I didn't put in this slide is really making sure we're developing and using data more consistently in each of these areas to sort of make decisions and track our successes. But if we can improve attendance, then academic performance, failure rates, MCAS scores, dropout rates, everything should improve accordingly, and that's our theory of action behind this. So if we go to the next slide, academic excellence, I'm going to ask Dave DiPietro, our social studies department chair, to start, and follow up by assistant principal Cynthia Maslon.
Cool. All right. So I'm the person who gets to say that the easiest way to do all the stuff Alicia's talking about is to have really high quality and good instruction, and that's the most obvious thing in the world, and I think it's something that we're really focused on the last couple of years especially. The department head team or the department chair team that I'm a part of, it's like every conversation we have is about what's happening in classrooms and how are we getting the most rigorous grade level or above high quality stuff in front of kids. Because, I mean, to Alicia's data on attendance, if a kid is engaged in class and they have some choice in what they're doing in class and they're excited about what they're doing in class, they're going to be in class and they're going to have that deeper learning experience and they're going to have all of that. So I think the idea that we've really focused in on making sure that we're doing things like checking the rigor of assignments, thinking about the curriculum choices we're offering kids, and focusing on student-centered learning so students become drivers of their learning, that's like I think most of what my role has been, and I think the department chair role. To Alicia's other point, I do think we're also thinking about how we collect some data. We use some district metrics, like the conditions of learning survey for stuff like rigor. We're also thinking as a department team about how we collect that more ongoingly for kids and for students, and thinking about how they feel and what their experience is in the class, as well as grade data, as well as some of the other stuff. So if you go to the next slide. Our action steps, I mean, I think part of this for us is thinking about ways that we have common practices that we're encouraging educators to support students with, and common practices of accountability that we're putting forward for students. So if you think about something like in the last couple of years, we've moved towards a common grading system across the school so that students can understand the grades that they're getting more. You demystify that, the idea being a student then becomes the owner and driver of that. There's a common set of high leverage instructional practices we use across the board, and different departments might focus on different elements of it, but they're all around the idea of making sure kids are getting high quality, rigorous, and student-centered learning on a daily basis. The ILT drives some of this work, the department chairs drive some of this work, and for the most part, staff, teacher and staff learning goals were based around this stuff too. I think I'm gonna let you folks look at the outcomes piece, but I think I'm gonna hit it from there.
Yep, to that second part. So going back to what both Dave and Alicia said about using our data and systems to make sure that, yes, we have high rigor, we have student-centered learning, grade level instruction. We also want to make sure that we are providing the supports that all students need. And one way that we can do that is by definitely looking at our data and our systems and identifying the strengths and the needs of our students. One way that we've done that this year, we actually worked with Boston Children's Hospital and did a tiered fidelity inventory. So we looked at tier 1, what are the supports that we have for all students. We're very much focused on targeted and time-based. So like if we are providing supports for students, it's very much, all right, tier 1, we're gonna do this for a couple of weeks, we'll come back, we'll look at it. We've also, in our community meetings, we've made sure that we meet as a team, talk about our students, figure out what supports we're putting in, what interventions. We come back, we assess if it's working. If it's not, then what is the next tier that can be used? We have a lot more case conferences with all stakeholders involved. We are also, our NGE, 10GE are meeting regularly as well, and talking about students, also thinking about the supports that are in place, and just really making sure that we're going back to that data, and it's not, we did this, doesn't work, and we move on. It's, nope, we did this, it didn't work, what else do we have? Really making sure that one size doesn't fit all. What are we doing to make sure that all students are successful in the classroom, in and out of the classroom? I think we can move to the next slide. We can move to the next one.
Our goal around equity and access, in order to remove barriers that prevent students from accessing opportunities that help them develop what they're interested in, their passions. Over the next 3 years, we will increase representation of historically underrepresented groups in extracurricular, higher level courses, CTE by at least 20%. And how are we going to do that? We're going to develop and establish systems to monitor demographic data. Some of this data may be anecdotal as well. In our community, we have been talking about the orientation that our newcomers get in the middle of the year. So they don't all, students don't come in all in September, right? They come in throughout the year. And so we have a system in place where they go through orientation. And one of the things we've been talking about, because we have heard that kids who are coming not only from other countries, but maybe other school districts, how things work in their district. So just informing them, educating them of things that they can do. We've had kids who who didn't know what a Frisbee club that existed, and so and very interested in that, right? But not just that, athletics and how do they get from point A to point B, and just assisting them. And so part of what we are talking about is structuring more that newcomer orientation, so that we're not only giving orientation to the student, but also to the parents and what they need to know, and informing them and educating them. And so participation in clubs and co-curriculars will be representative of enrollment demographics, and we will maintain growth of representative access to advanced coursework for MLE students to CTE as well.
And like we said before, and many of you who know the educators at SHS, we're all about student voice and making sure that students are seen, heard, and feel connected. So one part that we are really working on as part of our goal is increasing student leadership and ownership opportunities. We want students to become drivers of their own learning. We want them to be invested into it because it is theirs, and we are just kind of there to help guide them as they steer the wheel. And One way that we are doing this is we will convene, we can go to the next slide. We will convene a group of staff and students to kind of also take an inventory of all the existing opportunities that we have. What are the co-curriculars that are there? Like Joelle kind of mentioned, what are the opportunities that they believe that we should have. We had grade assemblies today, and in every single grade, the students kind of created, our class officers for each grade, kind of created an advisory board. They're like, yes, we were the elected people, but we want to work with you all. If you want to join and help us, join this advisory board. So they're on their own, right? Like when we step away and we let them lead, they come up with great ideas. So that's part of making sure that we bring that wellness and joy into the school. We are also planning freshman orientation with the students. So on Wednesday, Alicia, Alicia and I will be hosting an info sessions for over 50 students, some who have self-selected, others who were nominated by staff, who were interested in being the circle leaders, because we will be training them on how to lead circles, so bringing in that restorative justice student-led. We will be training them in June, but this is the first info session of students that are interested in, and they will be also planning freshman orientation. They will also be a part of X-Block, so they will be leading the circle prompts during X-Block for those students too, in order for our freshmen and incoming students to have an upperclassman that they can ask questions to, and kind of learn the school, because we know that if they're taking ownership, they're way more invested, and when they're more invested, they attend more, and back to our first point at the beginning, everything else increases. Thank you.
Next slide. I just want to shout out Assistant Principal Maslon there. The district this year offered training for our staff members to become, what's your official certificate?
Restorative Justice Trainer.
She's a trainer, and so by getting that training, and her project is now training the students, and the students can be spreading it, and again, trying to hand it over to the students and spread that. So thank you to Ms. Maslon. Family and community engagement, you have all already heard us here at a presentation a while back. One of the ways we really want students to engage with the community and really more fully realize the vision we developed with the Barr Foundation is to have that project for students, that culminating project at the end of their high school career. As you heard a few months ago, we're going to start smaller, roll it out, but the vision is that every senior will have some experience either with that ECHO project or the community service project to engage with their community, but also, I think we also said there that every single senior next year will be getting college credits through their English class, whether it's the Bunker Hill English class, the Syracuse University English class, or the AP English class. Every single student will have the opportunity to have transferable college credits. So the Bunker Hill one is only applicable at Bunker Hill. We're working on that, but every student will have some sort of college level experience starting next year.
And in order to improve the home and school partnership, we will be revising communication systems. Right now, we use talking points, newsletter. For some communities, we use WhatsApp a lot to communicate with parents. And to ensure that parents, caregivers receive regular information about what their child is learning, what is going on at the school, and also timely updates on student progress with an increased focus on positive communication. I think that parents hear a lot. I think that parents sometimes get a call or a message talking about or wanting to talk to parents about an academic failure or not doing so well, but I think giving positive feedback. One of the things that also we started doing this year is like let's say, the perfect attendance celebration, right? Just sending positive message home. Congratulations, your child made the honor roll this year. We've done that like on WhatsApp, on talking points. So just making sure that we are providing input and feedback to our families.
And then just the last slide. Again, going back to our mission, we want every student to find their passion. And for students at Somerville High School, it can look extremely different from student to student. And we just want to make sure that every single one of them has a sense of who they are, what they want to do with themselves, what they want to do in the world, and has that confidence and the skills necessary to achieve at that high level. We're really seeing attendance as the key point to focus on, and we're trying to make a tighter community with more leadership opportunities for students, better quality experience in their classrooms, a more restorative, tighter community that they really feel a part of, and providing them the supports that they need. And hopefully if we do that, we're going to see just a general, what is the expression? Floating, the rising water, what is it? Rising toad floats all boats? That one. That's what we're going for. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I'll start with Mr. Green, and then Dr. Eck.
So thank you, as always. And actually, your last comment with the rising tides ties nicely to my first question, which is, actually it's not a question, it's a comment. But I think it's important in this time when the idea of equity is under attack to illustrate a very simple but powerful example in your thing, where you did what is actually true equity. You were like, what are the characteristics of our students who are failing the MCAS? And the characteristic you highlighted on was they aren't coming to school. And so you're going to make programming based on identifying that there's a subsection of our population that is failing because they aren't coming to school. And that is actually what we mean when we say equity, is identifying who are we failing, what do they have in common, and how do we address it. And so I really appreciate that approach. I really appreciate your answer. And I'm really excited to see what you do with it, especially because you centered your answer. And the first thing is, well, the first thing we can do is we can make our classes a more exciting, more interesting place to be, which I got in trouble my first year on school committee because I made a comment about how every kindergartner is excited to go to school. And somewhere along the line, most students lose that. And I don't think it's because they change, it's because we don't do the work we need to do to make school a place they want to be. So I really appreciate your centering that, and I look forward to a year from now hearing what you have done to make students want to be in class. Thank you.
Dr. Ackman and then Ms. Patel.
Thank you, through the chair. I agree. Thank you for this presentation. Congratulations on getting the restorative justice certification. I think that's a really big deal and just wonderful that you are imparting that on the students in this district. I am curious, my understanding, and this may be to the district, is that all of your students have access to free T-passes provided by the city, is that correct? So I'm curious, as you are thinking about, barriers to getting to school, that one should be taken away from your students. And if it's not, please let us know. But are there other literally material ways that the district could be supporting this goal? Because, it is data-driven, amazing. It is what we want. And so, my first thought was oh, T-passes, wait, we do that already. So what else? Are there material ways that we can be supporting that?
Only because we talked about this not too long ago in the Broadway's community meeting. Yes, many of our students, or all of our students technically, have T-passes, but depending on where you live in the city, there is no transportation to get you to the school. And I think that makes it very difficult for some of our students, and that does then impact, because some of our students do end up walking, it then impacts their tardiness. And if you're more than 30 minutes late to first block, based off of our policy, you are marked absent. And more than 5, you fail the class. So I do think that then, we have passes, but transportation accessibility is not the same for everyone.
And I should add to that, I know one of the projects our student council is doing this spring is on the bus route, specifically from the Mystic Projects to the high school, and they're working on gathering data and making some recommendations on that. But literally, Cynthia and Joelle spend so much of their time trying to get kids to school. So Joelle, anything to add on the barriers?
For those kids who don't have easy access to transportation, even though they have a T-Pass, we do have a lot of kids. It affects their attendance as well. It's like it's raining a lot, or it's windy, or whatever. We always get that in our community. And when I ask the kids, it's like, oh, I live on the other side of Somerville, and I have to wait, however many minutes for the bus, or I have to walk so many blocks to go to the bus. So yes, it does affect some of our kids.
Do you have a follow-up?
It just, through the chair, when that presentation is completed, I'm sure you will do everything you can, but please know, I think I speak for my colleagues, you have our full support in figuring out how to get that presentation, to MBA staff, MBTA staff, and, please don't hesitate to lean on us to reach out to advocate, to make sure that, your elected officials come to your students and hear what they have to say.
I have, Ms. Patel? Oh, did you want to follow up?
I also wanted to say I had the pleasure of speaking to at least one or two of the students who are now working on the project with my city council colleague last summer, because as you mentioned, the place that this really affects is the Mystics and 10 Hills, where there is no better way to get to the high school than to walk uphill the entire way, which if it's snowing or pouring out, it's just a miserable, miserable, miserable experience having done it. And so I know that several people, including myself, have in the past pushed for the MBTA to look at some form of north-south bus coverage, because currently Somerville lacks any of it. And I think a couple of us have even taken maps and drawn out possible routes for the MBTA, only we told they weren't interested because they didn't think the ridership would support it. So when that presentation is done, I know that there will be uptick for it to bring it to MBTA, or to think of other ways in which to get that service. And I expect that when Clarendon Hill is finished, we'll have a similar issue, because the way to do that is take the 89 most of the way there and then walk up a steep hill, because or to walk to Davis and take the 80. But there's, again, no good way for people from that housing authority to get there as well. So I hope that that's the next step, is to figure out that one.
Ms. Patel?
Thank you, through you. Thank you for all being here tonight. I know it's kind of late, and I'm not going to belabor. I had 2 things that I was interested in. One is systems to monitor demographics data. I know that when we had a presentation at programs about open honors, that was clearly a real barrier to be able to assess how successful open honors has been particularly for underrepresented groups or students that weren't accessing the higher levels. So I'm curious about that and what kind of resources you might need to make that happen. And I guess I could pull my other question off. I'll mention it, but I love seeing new scheduling ideas. Everybody knows I'm always beating the drum about scheduling. I know that's something that didn't succeed at the time, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about, in the future where we might be able to have scheduling that is a little more accommodating to students and improves access for kids.
So to your first question, it's been, as maybe Dr. Carmona knows, my professional practice goal to improve our systems of data that are readily accessed and can be used. And it's taken 2 years, and we have a dashboard that shows demographic present. It just has athletics, and it just has CTE right now. And it just, I think I mentioned to some of you in here before, it just takes so long to clean up the data and get your data and where you're getting your data source from. But we have these tableaus that now we can just run the report. And I say we, I mean Arundhati and Sam in the data office and Simone Braga at the high school. But we have 2 of those down. We're doing some of it informally. Julie Phyllis in the school counseling suite has been tracking the demographics of who's getting what interventions, who are doing mental health assessments, safety assessments for. We're just trying to make, if we can get this template of the Tableau and get the data easily to upload, then we can use that. Melanie Kessler's tracking, participation rate of different demographics in AP classes. She's looking also at scores in AP classes. But it's sort of, I would like to have almost like a dashboard with a set of tableaus, and maybe we can integrate it. The district is doing great work with open architects, but this demographic participation is more like a niche thing, and it's not going to be their first look on that, and that's not a criticism, but we're just slowly trying to build the systems. And if we can build the systems, then we can make part of the regular practices and habits of the administrators. But you got to build the systems. Our number 1 priority, which has been ridiculously complex, that's going to be ready to go in the fall, is that the class cuts, the kids who are coming to school and not going to class. It's just very hard for different reasons to pull the data, but we're going to have a beautiful tableau at our fingertips to start the fall with, because that's one of the areas we want to work on. To your second question, we came up with 2 beautiful, first of all, I want to say I don't think our schedule is terrible. There's no such thing as a perfect schedule. We have about 60-minute classes. The students see their classes 4 times each week. There are pros to it. It's not great for CTE in particular. It's, even though it's better than the last one we had, it still has some barriers to those full-day internships. But it's not we're not in crisis mode with our schedule. Having said that, there's some problems. We have done surveys. We have identified what the top problems are. As you know, a couple years ago, we tried to pass a trimester one. It didn't go over. And what's been happening now is we have a couple different models. But before we move forward with it, we have to get our high school admin team to agree on it. And there's very good points in favor and against the 2 models that we've spent the last summer and fall working on. So we're taking a little pause, and we're going to try again, maybe a different group of people looking at it. But there's just some, there's no perfect schedule. And so which pros are you going to take and which cons are you going to try to work around? And so we're always thinking about it. I think we're going to take another structured plan over the summer, maybe into the fall, because you really got to have the schedule decided on by the fall if you're going to get everyone trained for the next year. So we're not giving up. And particularly, I think the CTE, the not seeing, everything you said about full circle schedule, I think would be true for our students too. I think we'd see our failure rate our theory is we'd see our failure rates improve if students weren't juggling so many classes. But there's a very real challenge to things like math, language, students with certain learning disabilities of not having that continuity. And every time you make fewer classes, then you're making bigger gaps between their learning. And that's what we keep bumping up against.
Yep, follow up, and then.
Through you, just quick. I'm curious, is the trimester concept off the table, or is it something still in the mix? I'm curious.
I mean, nothing's off the table, really. Yeah.
Dr. Phillips.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Thank you for this amazing plan. I'm really impressed by where you're going and how you got there. The one comment I wanted to make is that one of the things I'm super impressed about is that essentially you have a whole plan about addressing chronic absenteeism, but you're really talking about the root cause of it, which is meaningful engagement. And I feel lucky to be part of this district where this is how you're approaching the problem.
All right. Are there more questions? All right, then.
Just to wrap up, I forgot to in my introductions, I could say wonderful things about all of these people, and they sort of represent the amazing team I'm fortunate to work with at the high school. Dave works with this great team of department chairs. I think some of you saw them in the open honors presentation or the leveling presentation. He's not making it up. They're spending so much time on really thinking about what engaging, rigorous learning is and how to support students to reach that high level, and really trying to support their teachers doing it. That whole team, and they're doing extra research and educating themselves on that. And Joel, as his community, he works with Elm Community, really attacking those barriers to getting students to school. It's not just engagement. There's a lot of outside factors that are an issue too, but also really working on communication, getting students who are newcomers really integrated into the school. I mean, they have to by necessity. If you want to bring in parents, he and the whole team in the Elm Community are working on different ways of communicating, different ways of bringing people in. And I just want to shout everybody out here because they really are representing representative of the wonderful people I get to work with all the time at the high school. And they stayed here till 8:30 with me.
All right, thank you all again. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, that is the end of the report.
All right, it looks like we have a personnel report. Is there anything you want to highlight in that?
No, I don't. I was reviewing it, and nothing stick out to me, so I will review it again, and if there's something, I'll bring it up for the next meeting.
Are there any questions from my colleagues about the personnel report? Okay, seeing none, that brings us to some subcommittee reports to approve. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve there we go. School committee meeting for the school building finance and maintenance from April 14th and finance and facilities from April 16th.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Barish. If there is no discussion, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to a Shore Collaborative report. We're going to table that to our next meeting, okay? We have...
2 meetings, because
Okay.
next week, so right?
Yes.
Yep, 2 meetings.
Sure. Okay. That brings us to the interim chief financial officer contract. I will entertain a motion. The exact wording should be in your packet.
I move to approve the contract between the committee and Robert Beretta for the position of interim chief financial officer and authorize the chair and superintendent to sign.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Barish, seconded by Dr. Ackman. If there is no discussion, Mr. Green?
Just want to make sure that I know we couldn't put it in the packet before the meeting, but that we make sure we put it in now that we put it in since it's been approved ASAP.
Yes, I will ask Erica to do that tomorrow. If there is no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to a side letter to approve.
I motion to authorize the chair to sign SEU Unit A Appendix B extracurricular activities side letter.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Mr. Green, to authorize me to sign the side letter. If there is no discussion, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to some field trips. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve on May 17th and 18th, 23 students from the high school to attend the GX Ultimate Frisbee in Northampton, Massachusetts to compete in the PVF tournament. Travel via SHS van, student cost is $0. On May 2nd, 14 students from Next Wave Full Circle will attend Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire. Travel via Next Wave Full Circle van, student cost is $0. May 17th and May 18th, 22 students from Somerville High School, is this again? Will attend the GX Ultimate Frisbee in Northampton to compete in the...
Looks like it just got entered
Great,
twice.
I'm going to keep going then.
Yep.
June 10th, 45 8th grade students from the West Somerville Neighborhood School to visit Canopy Lake Park as an end-of-year celebration. Travel via school bus, student cost is $0. And on June 13th, 78th grade students from East Somerville Community School will visit Canopy Lake Park as an end-of-year celebration. Travel via school bus, and the student cost is $20.
I have a motion by Dr. Ackman. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Barish. Mr. Green?
I got to ask, we have 2 trips to the same place at 2 different schools. One is $0, one is $20. Can we get an explanation for that?
Thanks through the chair. I don't have an explanation. My assumption, and I can get some further clarification from the schools, my assumption is based on, fundraising. However, as our practice goes, if there's any students who cannot pay for the trip, schools do provide for it. But that said, I don't have, any kind of clarification there. I can get that from the school though, and report back to the committee if you'd like.
I would. Thank you.
Okay. With that, if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Have fun on all these great end-of-year field trips. All right, we have some grants.
I move to accept all federal entitlement and continuation grants and all state continuation grants awarded to the Somerville Public Schools listed below. Private grant from the Somerville Foundation for $500 for Brown School musical instruments.
Motion by Ms. Parrish, seconded by Dr. Ackman. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. We have some donations.
I'll make a motion to approve these donations with acceptance and gratitude from the following donors. From FW Webb in Bedford, $3,000 for a CTE plumbing program. From the Somerville Asian Family Network, $400 an additional donation for school libraries to use funds to purchase books written by Asian authors. And Jack Donahue Audio Tech Service for $1,200 for SHS Music Department Yamaha Mixed Console for the recording studio.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Patone, seconded by Mr. Green. If there is no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to unfinished business. I believe you already gave us the MSBA update. Mr. Green also has something for us.
Yeah, I have a request from the CAG that if perhaps at our second meeting in May or our first meeting in June, if we could have a conversation amongst ourselves around what are the things we think are important in the selection for a new building. That is feedback that the CAG has asked for. So.
Through the chair, can I make a request to Member Green that you email that request to us as a reminder?
Yes.
Well, I can make sure it's on the agenda, but I'm more concerned about who will lead that conversation amongst us, is more just what I'm thinking through.
I just thought we put it on the agenda, but if you want to go that some other way, we can have that conversation.
Okay. Ms. Patone?
Thank you, through you. Just to follow up, I mean, it could be something that happens in regular, it could be something that happens in a special meeting.
True.
If we feel like it's something that will work better with a facilitated session, because that's not as easy to do in a horseshoe. I also wanted to make the request through you to Member Green, to have some type of report of the status of the CAG and where they are and what your experience has been with them. That would be helpful to inform what we're going to provide input to.
Mr. Green?
Sure. So the good news is, for the first time, I think, for me in this process, the last meeting felt productive. I think it's fair to say that where we are is still trying to narrow the parameters of the decision matrix. Yeah. Let me put it, to put that in perhaps less jargony terms, I think there's still some uncertainty amongst the CAG members as to what we're supposed to be bringing to the table. There are open questions from on the city's front about the true cost of various plans. One thing that, especially for Ms. Patel, who has, this is not her first rodeo on these things, the issue of the fact that by state law, there has to be a land swap if Trump Field is used, and that land must be contiguous in size and be usable for the same purposes. And the fact that the city has not identified where that would be makes truly costing a Trump Field project impossible, at least in my opinion. And so we are being asked to make decisions between things of unknowable costs, and that's just the direct financial costs. One of the reasons it's so important to me that we have a conversation about what we want in a building is because I think oftentimes the city's presentation doesn't think about educational utility. One of the things I brought up in our last CAG meeting was what would it mean to house our autism program in what would be the biggest and presumably most complicated school in the district. Yes, loudest as well. And what does that mean to house that program there? Of course, we would not have to. Whatever gets handed, whatever decision made as far as building formats, they get handed to the school committee. It becomes that school committee's job to figure out the programming for it. But speaking for myself on this, it also feels uncomfortable to me to not put the autism program in our newest building after having them spend 7 years in the Edgerly, and then say, okay, we have this brand new shiny building, you can't use it. So like, these are kind of educational questions I think we need to start wrestling with so we can give meaningful feedback that these are not just buildings, but they are in fact schools and need to be treated as such. So yeah, I think that's basically where we are.
Thank you for that. If there's nothing else on, oh, okay. Did you want to, okay. If there's nothing else on the MSBA update, that brings us to items from committee members. Does anyone have any? Ms. Patel?
Thank you. Through you to the superintendent, I wanted to get a status on the pool, in particular rescheduling of swimming lessons that certain school populations weren't able to access. As everyone knows, the third graders all have this block of swimming, and you know, whether or not we can schedule it in the school year, and if we can't, what are the alternatives the city is accountable to, because this is something that is really important to our students. As we all know, many of them would not have access to swim lessons if they didn't have it through the schools.
Through the chair, yeah, I am going to have our assistant superintendent, Dr. Jessica Boston Davis, respond to that.
Sure, I'm happy to take this. Thank you for the question. I would agree that we find the swimming program to be extremely valuable, and we are working right now to operationalize a pretty complex and at times challenging situation. It's very valuable in that, as you mentioned, you know, there's access. It's a kind of a case for equity in that students who may not have access to swim classes outside of school, or be able to afford them, or be able to have a parent or a guardian bring them to swim lessons to be able to have that. You know, we know that drowning is, I think, the number 2 cause of death in students age, or children ages 2 to 14. So it's really, it's a value, and it is challenging right now. That said, when we think about rescheduling an already challenging to operationalize program, that kind of becomes even more complex. We are already thinking about how to better improve the swim program. We're thinking about alternatives to time of day, alternatives within the school year, because we do have concerns raised, valid concerns raised around the timing and, you know, the time it takes out of core instruction. So kind of the consideration of rescheduling, particularly at this point in the school year, is tricky. So with that being said, you know, I think we could think outside of the box. We can think about, you know, is there a possibility for there to be a summer kind of program, or funding around that? You know, is there a possibility for us to, I don't know, partner in other ways outside of school to make, you know, maybe after school or something like that, where there would be transportation for students to be able to make up those lessons, because it is valuable. And at this point in the year, thinking about rescheduling it almost feels like an added complexity.
Do you know how many students missed, or how many schools missed out on the lessons because of the pool closure?
The pool has been closed, I want to say, approximately about a month. Yeah. I don't have that exact number, though. Nicole Veely has been incredible on top of this, kind of emailing a daily update. So today, probably around 1 or 2, we had an update that it will not be open for tomorrow. So that's kind of how we've been maintaining. I can get the number for you and share that with the committee if you'd like.
Thank you, through you. I really appreciate thinking outside of the box. I totally understand how complicated, even when the pool is open, to execute this program. But we also highly value this program. It's just it's just another kind of example of how access is so important to this district, and I really appreciate that we do this. So I look forward, and if there's anything that the school committee can do in terms of the city, because the hardest bit also is the fact that nobody intentionally had the school closed for 2 months. I mean, the pool closed for 2 months. We all know that. There wasn't a plan. No one's happy about it. But also, we can't, because that happened, we don't want to hoist the responsibility to the district to try to figure this out. And so hopefully our city partners can kind of step up and figure out, it will cost money, but how do we make our students whole so that they have this opportunity, whether it's after school, on the weekends, summer, whatever. But I would be supportive of any of that. So thank you for continuing to be creative with the city on this.
Right, are there any other items from committee members? Ms. Patton?
Thank you, through you. I don't want to, and you're not going to be prepared to talk about this through you to the superintendent, but in the buildings, the joint meeting, we continually talk about the Cummings building, and we really haven't come, we had lots of deliberation in the fall about using that building for our unhoused population, and we were very supportive of the idea, but we were very clear about what expectations we had in terms of from the city to be able to utilize that. And it included, if I remember correctly, and I apologize if I don't, I thought there was going to be some kind of MOU put together in terms of what the city was going to do, and I don't know if that ever came about. If it did, I would love to see a copy. I've already had a copy, and I apologize, I don't remember where it is. My apologies. But I know it's going to be on the agenda for the next joint City Council, School Committee, School Buildings meeting. But I would love if the superintendent's office could pursue that with the city and figure out. It makes me uncomfortable when kind of hands just go up in the air and saying, it's really complicated to do anything to this building, whereas I'm not even personally wedded for the Cummings particular, and we have that resolution, the motion that we had. It's just the fact that we don't have a risk mitigation plan in the event that we have the building go down. And I know that the city reacts really well, and they're really responsive, and they do everything they can to support our students, but I would feel much more comfortable. I think there's a new risk manager in the city office, and I would love to see work being done to have a plan in the event that we do need to, if students and classrooms are displaced, then we have a place to put them, whether it's the Cummings or something else. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other items from committee members? Seeing nothing, do we have condolences this evening, Dr. Phillips?
We do. The school committee extends its deepest condolences to the families of Barbara J. Synan, retired secretary of the Somerville Public Schools, Capuano, and Miles Stryer, beloved father of Siri Stryer, ELE academic support coordinator at Somerville High School.
With that, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.